Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for being here. Well, as you can see, today we're here to talk a bit about Excel, but more about going beyond. This webinar is exactly for the team managing EU and national grant projects. Just a heads up before we start, we're going to have a conversation that will last between 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will leave the floor for questions. This webinar, why did we do it? For our conversations with clients, peers, we've seen a pattern, if you will, something more than a coincidence. And today, that is the conversation that both Priscilla Powell and Miguel García are having. A little bit about our speakers. First of all, I want to present Priscilla. Priscilla has more than 15 years managing the financial compliance AV funded projects, not only here at Sploro, but in other organizations. She has coordinated researchers across multiple grants, teams, and countries. She has translated changing grant rules into workable internal processes. And all in all, she's always made sure everything holds up to audit scrutiny. Our second speaker is Miguel García, with 20 plus years of experience helping organizations grow through EU funding, but not just helping them grow, but seeing exactly what that growth does behind the scenes. He has scaled project operations across many teams with diverse EU portfolios, and he has watched organizations outgrow the systems that once supported them. Also, he has always spotted operational risks before they became compliance risks. And finally, a little bit about us. Who are we? Well, we're Sploro. We're bringing over 30 plus years of expertise managing EU projects. We have more than 175 paying customers in 30 countries. Today, we're managing more than 30 million euros in FSDP, known also as cascade funding, and we're a team comprised of more than 40 professionals. Just so you know, we're one of the top lead consultancies in FSDP across Europe. And some of the programs we coordinate, you can see them below. And now, with further ado, Priscilla, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. As Cesar said, my name is Priscilla Powell, and I'm the head grant administrator here at Sploro. Before we start, I just want to make sure that one thing is clear. And this webinar is not coming from the perspective of a software vendor. It comes from the perspective of an organization that has spent years managing European funding. At Sploro, we've been consultants, coordinators, and beneficiaries. We've supported organizations applying for funding, coordinated projects, and we've managed our own project portfolios. And throughout all these years, we've had to deal with the same reality that many of you probably deal with every day without knowing, or maybe you prefer not to know. We've had to make sure audits don't become a problem, and we made sure that getting there isn't a titanic effort. It wasn't that our system was broken. We did what we could to manage what we worked and what we liked what we worked. But as our own portfolio grew, I had to flag an uncomfortable reality. And that reality was uncomfortable because I had invested significant time into building our process and refining our spreadsheets and creating our internal logic, our macros, etc. I didn't want to throw any of that away. Here's where today's webinar starts. With that same reality that many of you are either living or might live as you get more funding. Many conversations around software start going wrong because of one assumption. If you're looking for an alternative, your current system must not be working. But that's not always true. In fact, some of the most sophisticated project justification systems I've seen are built using exactly the tools you see on your screen. Excel, SharePoint, Teams, internal tools, Power BI, custom workflows, and they work, and many of them work extremely well. Those systems aren't bad. Your current system is not necessarily broken. But let me ask you a different question. If tomorrow your organization received twice as many projects, would your system absorb that complexity? Or would the people behind it have to? There's always a hidden layer behind the system. It depends on one thing, usually one person or a small team. Everyone knows who that person is. I was that person. I know how it feels to be the only person who knows which spreadsheet is the correct one, who understands why a particular calculation is done a certain way, or the only one who knows where supporting evidence is stored, who understands the exceptions. I was the only one who knew what happened when requirements changed 2 years ago. And then when something doesn't add up, all that pressure falls on that one person. This isn't criticism or evidence that you failed. It's actually quite the opposite. We are usually some of the most capable people in the organization. The reason why we have become central is because we've accumulated years of expertise and years of operational experience. The better we make that system, the more knowledge accumulates around us, the people maintaining it. Because growth creates complexity. We have more projects, which means more funding, more beneficiaries, way more reporting obligations, more exceptions and mythologies, more evidence and requirements to track. And every time complexity appears, someone like us must absorb it. Usually not the system, but the people behind it. And that's why dependency tends to increase gradually. Not suddenly, it just happens over the years, until one day you realize that a critical process relies heavily on the people carrying all that knowledge. So what happens if the person is unavailable for a few weeks or a couple of months? How much of your project justification process would still function exactly the same way if your most experienced grant administrator disappeared for the next 3 months? What happens when a reporting rule changes? Who updates the reporting model and validates unusual cases? When an auditor asks an unexpected question, who knows the audit and knows where the evidence is stored? Or when a new cost category appears, who will explain the logic behind its new calculations? Does the system know how to do it? It's not necessarily a tool problem, it's a design problem. Because if the organization can't answer those questions without relying on a specific person or team, then the process itself has become dependent. And dependency is not always visible while everything is working. It becomes visible when something within the process changes, when a requirement changes, or when people change and organizations grow. And that's when dependency becomes the surface. This was one of the most important realizations for us. Excel and SharePoint are powerful, but none of them can contain the expertise themselves. Expertise sits in the people, like you and me, who design the process, who connect the tools and interpret the rules. We maintain the consistency, so the real question is not, do the tools work? The real question is, how much of our project justification process depends on the people behind those tools? Because that's where an organizational risk begins to emerge. This is the conclusion we eventually reached ourselves. The system didn't really live in Excel or folders. It didn't live in the workflows, it lived in the people. The reporting logic, the exceptions, the mythology, the context lived in people. That's where I was. And that created two consequences. First, we became indispensable. The process depends on us, on our availability, and our workload. Our time becomes increasingly dedicated to maintaining the system. My time was consumed on maintaining the system, and Sploro was constrained to my availability. And second, if I became unavailable, the organization was left with a hole. The files, the data, the evidence still existed, but the knowledge behind them became much harder to access, and that's the real risk. Not losing the spreadsheet, but losing the knowledge that makes the spreadsheet work. So why did we call this webinar Beyond Excel? Not because Excel is good or bad, simply because we felt project justification needed one step further. The challenge begins when the process becomes dependent on one person, like it had with me. For us, the next logical step was not disruption, but creating something familiar. Something that had more independent workflow, so others like project managers, researchers, the CEO, and other employees could access the information without having to depend on me and my availability. It wasn't AI or changing everything overnight. It was simply, how can we preserve the familiarity of the way we work while making the knowledge, the logic, and the process less dependent on certain individuals? How can we keep what works while making it easier for everyone? That is what Beyond Excel means for us. I needed a tool that adapted to me, to Sploro, not the other way around. Most of you have already built something valuable, or you are about to start. You have your own processes, your mythologies, and your macros. Your knowledge has enormous value, but the stress levels are high, and you need to work on you need time to work on other areas. The tools you have should adapt to you and to your needs. The goal should never be to throw away what you have created, but to protect it, to structure it, make it scalable to your needs, and adapt to your organization, not the other way around. A robust system shouldn't force you to abandon years of experience. It should preserve the works and reduce the dependency on you, and allow your grant professionals to focus on work that truly requires their expertise, because ultimately this isn't about spreadsheets, it's about the software. It's about ensuring that critical organizational knowledge remains an organizational asset. So to help explain the process we went through and the program we developed, I will now let Miguel explain it to you. Miguel?
Thank you, Priscilla, about that. So one of the questions that we as a founders were questioning on this whole process that was a bit messy is how do we capture the logic that is behind the process justification, because we didn't want to have a process that just was depending on one single person. We wanted the team to understand it. We wanted the auditors to follow it, and without building the whole thing from scratch. So this is why we actually constructed our tool Cronies that became a product, and this was why Cronies was built. So how Cronies works is basically think a bit about this process of justification of costs, and think that there is a single tool that you can bring out the process out of people's head into one place. So all the spreadsheets that you use for the timesheets, all the costs that you report that are stored somewhere, all the tickets, all the SharePoint evidences that you're storing here and there, are all together in the same place, all online, and with the capacity to grow as you grow with the number of projects that you're winning. So in conclusion, it's a place online where you can build this process out of scratch without being so dependent on the people that actually know in the organization how it works. So just a few examples on how our tool Cronies works to let you know how it looks like, what can you do with it, and so on. So one of the things that we really like best, and we've seen this because this is a common mistake, it's the calendars. So one of the typical mistakes that many organizations do is reporting hours in days that are holidays, in days that the office is closed, in days where you cannot actually report hours to the projects because you can't, basically, legally speaking. So also we face the situation where there are different locations in the same company, so you don't even have the same calendars, or basically these type of tiny rules that make the exception a problem when there needs to be a reporting system. So our tool, for instance, lets you define every single calendar at once so that you can assign those calendars to your employees, and there are no silly mistakes when doing the reporting. So it's a very useful starting point to verify that the hours are reported when they should. Additionally, so the system comes with a little bit of intelligence as well. So connected to Cordis through your PIC number, we will extract the public information about your projects, but then you can add additional information so that the reporting is made based on the actual information of the grant agreements. So for instance, the budgets, the work packages, the reporting periods that you need, and also the assignment of the people that is attached to these work packages is something that you can do on your own, or even we have intelligence in the system so that you can upload the grant agreement and we extract that information and put it in the system with very little effort from your side. So you save a lot of time configuring every single project that you have in the organization. You don't have to build this by hand, and it's basically extracting information from public data sources plus you adding the official documents so that the configuration is really, really easy. The important thing as well about the time reporting is that it follows the rules. and this is relevant because the system is not just designed to a single program or a single type of projects. We started with Horizon Europe because it was the most extended, but we now support different types of programs which use slightly different rules for calculation of productive time, day equivalents, PMs, and all that stuff that you're into. If you're into this business, you probably already know. So basically, the system is configured in a way that enables to manage all sorts of R&D projects all at once, so that you don't have to build different Excel files for every single program. So you have all the information in the same place, and it's very easy for people to do the follow-up, the reporting, and the internal justification of costs. Also really important is what we call the analytics part. So because you are reporting in a system that already counts with all the restrictions and with all the legalities and everything that is put in place, you are aware of what is going on real time on all the projects, or in every specific project, work packages and everything on real time. So you get to know the deviations, you get to know what's the actual cost that you have on each of the categories, you get to know everything that you need, and then you can easily download it and report it to the coordinator, internally to the board members, or to the CEO of the company, or wherever you're based to. So it's just a couple of clicks and you get all the information real time. And basically you start to manage the project like a pro with a very easy tool, and you start to lose this dependency on key people that if they fail or if they are not in the organization at some point, will make you a significant funnel to do this kind of reporting. So what happens again? Think about a system that updates itself. So the landscape keeps changing, that's for sure. We're now about to close the Horizon Europe, and the new FP will start in a couple of years. I'm pretty sure the rules will change. I'm pretty sure your systems built on Excel files or other tools will have to be updated. If you're under Cronus, you wouldn't have to be concerned about that, because basically you're going to be having or using a system that will update together with the changes as they happen. So the European funding is never quiet, it's never still, it's always changing, and more programs are evolving. And even inside your organizations, what today you have 3 Horizon Europes, tomorrow it might be 3 Horizon Europes, 1 Interreg, and another project coming from your national grants. You shouldn't worry really if you're using our system, because basically we are comprising all the programs that are needed in the same tool, so that you are all the time updated and can easily handle what is going on. So from my side, that's it. I would like to thank nearly 100 people that we had in the room. So that's a lot of people. I'm pretty sure that you will all have a lot of questions. So the floor will be open now for the Q&A through the chat. But just a final reflection before I leave is that if you came across of one person, one problem with a spreadsheet, one problem with a reporting process during our presentation, just think that the most likely thing that you should do would be to book us a demo and see if we can help you with our system to understand how you work, what are your current situation with the reporting system in your organizations, because we really think that we can easily help you. You've got a QR code there. So it's easy as to scan it, and it will take you to our booking system to reserve a slot with our team, and we will be happy to have additional chat about it in the coming days. Cesar?
Well, thank you very much, Miguel, Priscilla. This is the end of the conversation. We now open the floor for questions. Well, okay, we start getting some traction here. Miguel, first question, is your tool adapted for organizations using PUCs, personal unit costs?
Yeah, we support different methods for calculation of personal unit cost, and also SME owners and also freelancers. So yeah, the short answer is yes. So see if you want to see it online. Happy to have a further conversation with you.
By the way, I did not mention we have in PNR a questions and responses section here in the Teams webinar. Please put your question there. If you raise your hands, I will not be able to give you to have you voice your question. So please type it. We have another question here. Is there any way that the Cronis can be covered either by European projects, by Kit Digital, or any other initiatives, Miguel?
Yes. So it really, so long story short, we are not a Kit Digital provider in Spain. That's something very specific from our country. We are not an official provider for that, so not through that. But it is important to understand that many programs, specifically Horizon Europe or even Digital Europe, depending on how your budget is structured, this cost can be an eligible one. Under the purchase category, other direct costs, this is a license. So if your project is funded at 100% rate, that means that the cost for you is paid by the project. So that's doable. But it really, we have a blog entry, a blog post explaining a little bit of that on cronis.app/blog, so you can read about it. So I hope that answers your question, Tatiana.
Another question here. Cronis was built, yes, for dependency, but in terms of organizations, are we talking about beneficiaries of EU funding, coordinators of EU funding, both? What would be the answer here, Miguel?
I mean, that's a good question. So the initial module, the one that we're talking here today, is called Cronis Financials. So this is a tool that is oriented towards organizations which count with a portfolio of projects. So several projects running in parallel. You need to handle the timesheet, you need to handle and to take care of not being double funding or doing extra, let's say, extra input of hours between the different employees and so on. So this is a tool oriented for organizations with a portfolio of projects. The portfolio can start by one. So even if you're new to this ecosystem of EU projects, you can even run your projects here. Then the consortium part. We have recently launched another tool, which is Cronis PMO, which is a tool more oriented towards project management operations, that is consortium. So this tool is not oriented to do the follow-up of tasks, to keep track of deliverables, of milestones or risks happening during the implementation. Also, this is not a shared tool focused to the consortium members. The Cronis Financial tool is just focused for organization. For the other use case, for consortium, we have Cronis PMO. Okay, so we might organize another webinar about PMO in the coming weeks, but this tool would be more oriented, I would say, to project managers and consortium members rather than the financial operators or people like Priscilla, which are dealing with the timesheets and the cost calculation.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here about the types of programs that Cronis can support. Maybe I can already answer this one, but Miguel, just to confirm it, we can tailor Cronis to almost any program. Isn't that right? Doesn't matter if it's Horizon, doesn't matter if it's a national grant, it doesn't matter how concrete or specific it is, the tool has the means to support the program, right?
Yes, so mainly we started with European projects, but at the end we have customers using also for national or regional grants. If there is any very specific program that you need support with because it's something that you really want to have, it's just a matter of discussing. We typically have an implementation stage of customizing the programs of a couple of days because the vast majority of R&D projects in Europe work more or less the same. But if there is some specific need, we can check it out for sure. But be aware that this will cover, I would say, 90% of the programs that exist already. So if there is something missing, we will adapt it. No worries.
Mm-hmm. Another one. Can we have a project breakdown as well per working package and task? just to see how we would allocate project manager effort.
Yeah. The allocation is only done at work package level or activity level, depending on the program. So, for instance, Interreg all the things activities instead of work packages. And we don't go beyond that because the official reporting does not require that. So basically, we leave the expenses tracking at work package level.
Mm-hmm. Where is the data stored? How is data security ensured?
Yeah, that's a relevant question, definitely. The data is stored in Europe. We use Amazon Web Services for the infrastructure, and all the data is stored in Frankfurt node with a replication in Ireland. We make sure that there is not any single data going outside the European Union, and in our terms and conditions is clearly specified where the data is. That's one thing. Second thing is we fully respect GDPR in the sense that all the data is stored in your own instance. So you only have access to your own data. Even our technical people, we have the database secure so that there are no leaks of information and so on. And plus, we store the data, which is also a typical question, up to 5 years after the license ends, in order to be aware that if you're audited in one of your projects, you can still have access to the data if the auditor asks you to send them something.
Mm-hmm. We got an interesting question here, Priscilla, Miguel. Camille asks, many coordinators use other systems. Each of them has different requirements. This is the reality. How does your system avoid duplication of work?
That's a good question. So that question is focused mainly for the PMO thing. So we are not giving here a presentation of a tool that is oriented to coordinators. So basically, this is a tool that you will use as an organization to handle your projects. Why is this relevant? Because when a potential audit comes in, they are not auditing all the partners in one project. They are auditing one project of one partner, 2 projects of the same partner, 3, 4, whatever number. The object of the audit is always the company, the organization, and never the full project per se. So if you face the situation that an auditor knocks in your company and you have to show them how you justify the costs of a number of projects, you have all the information here. That's one thing. Second is how you deal with the requirements of different coordinators. That's the story for PMO. So we've built the other tool in order to try to standardize how we do that with different coordinators. So with the other tool that, as I was saying, we can provide another webinar to show you how it works. We are focusing on that specific problem so that you can handle different consortium in the same tool and having the level of requirements in terms of costs, reporting, KPI reporting, deliverable execution, and everything on the other tool in a more standardized way. But this tool, as I was saying, this is more oriented towards the organization itself.
Mm-hmm. This in terms of the learning curve and using chronies, what would you say is the average time for adopting this tool to the needs of an organization? So the tool represents the whole reality. And again, how much time will it take the employees to learn how to use it?
Another very good question. So it really depends on the size of the organization. We typically provide onboarding hours with all the members. So there is part of the staff, which is what we call the organization manager or managers, which are basically the people that will configure the tool, set up everything, all the requirements, the calendars, what method of calculation for this and that. So those people can be up and running, I would say, in a couple of weeks, very easily. The system is very curated in terms of UX UI, so it has a very easy learning curve in order to add the data. So once those people are up and running, then we have usually a couple of sessions when needed, because as I tell you, it depends really on the size of the organization. With the project managers or people managers so that they understand how's the process, of validating cost, of validating timesheets, of checking aggregated information here and there. So more the analytical part. And then we have another session with the end users. So the end users, typically researchers that are inserting their hours in the system plus their costs when they have to do a trip or something like that. So in an hour, they are ready to go, because for end users, it's very easy. It's more a change in the way the middle management and the management of the organization is handling the process rather than with the end users.
Mm-hmm. A question here about invoices and evidences. Is there an option to scan them, all receipts, and have the app, well, basically, can Cronis work as a repository for all types of evidences relating to personnel costs?
Yes, definitely. So that is one of the things we thought about. So instead of having all the invoices, tickets, payrolls, documents of payment of the social security, transfers in the bank, everything you need to report to the auditor can be uploaded in the system in different sections. So when you build a report, you have everything there, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Last questions here. How does Cronis handle changes in project budgets over time, reallocations between cost categories, or internal budget revisions?
That's a good question as well. So by default, the system is working with a valid or legally approved version of the budget. But when you have amendments or things that change, you can change that. And we have a history part where you are actually setting up or writing down what was the original, the changes, and so that you can have a kind of a log where all the changes happened. But the system, in order to perform proper calculation, works with the valid version. That's one thing we do with changes. Then there is another change, which is relevant specifically for European-based grants, typically Horizon, Digital, and the standard ones, which is the reporting period. So, you report to the Commission every 18 months, approximately, depends on the project. You submit a justification, but then imagine that something changes in the system because you were mistaken or because costs of a certain person were wrongly inserted or whatever. So the system keeps track of all changes. Since the moment that you submit to the Commission, there is a version frozen in the system, and then there is always a comparison of what it would be like if you would be doing that reporting in parallel, so that you can amend even the justifications with the divergences that are shown in the system real time.
Mm-hmm. And the last question, did your clients using Cronis have an audit? What have been the results so far?
We actually had an audit as well, and we had customers with using Cronis with audit. So for the new website that we're planning in the coming months of Cronis, we will be even quoting what the auditor said. In our case, we were audited by one of these big four companies, and the outcome was very successful. First, because we use the electronic version of the timesheets, and that is electronically locked inside, and there is an audit with all track changes, everything that is happening when you sign a timesheet, when you change it, when everything. And that was very well seen by the auditors, and we even got some positive comments in our audit about that. And then there was no issue for our customers with the cost whenever the budgets enable to have this expense inside their budget. So it's bulletproof, I would say.
Perfect. Well, time's up. Thank you very much for everyone attending. We hoped you had a good time. We hope that you learned something, perhaps that you gave it some thought. You have the QR over there if you want to delve further and see for yourselves how the solution really looks. Aside from that, again, thank you very much and have a very good Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.